And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I've always been fascinated by mirrors and the opportunity to use mirrors in a game. Reflection here is an opportunity to stick a mirror in the middle of a game board, look at it, how it changes the game board, and play it. Now that almost sounds like a puzzle game when I first saw it, and essentially this is a puzzle game. It's a game in which both players are trying to, or all the players are trying to look at the board as quickly as they can and find the best position. Let me show you how it works. The game goes up for 4 players, and in the middle of the table is placed this device that spins around. It sits on top of this turntable here, which, incidentally, during the storing phase, it stores all the cards, which is kind of nice. But on top of this, you'll notice that here's a place to put a card, and you will, at the beginning of each round, draw a card and put it down on the spot. Now, you'll notice that there are different lines and dots next to those lines. That's because as soon as you put down the card, simultaneously, all players will try to pick a line that they think scores them the most points. So red says that, yellow says that, green says that one, and blue says he'll go with the diagonal line. Green says he'll go with the up and down line. You have to pick which one. Then players are going to take a mirror. Now, let's say yellow picks the line, so the mirror is placed on that line. Now you can see here that this changes how the board looks. Instead of it having all those dots, it simply has one blue dot and one yellow dot. And let's see, red put their board here, and you can see now that there's 5 blue dots and 2 yellow dots. And green said, actually green was the other direction here, and so green here has 2 yellow dots, 5 blue dots, 5 red dots, and 2 green dots. And then blue, if blue has 1 red dot and 2 yellow dots. Okay, these are all pretty horrible choices here, and I'll explain why. What you do when you look at the dots for each person for scoring. So let's say I put the line here. The first thing you do is you compare blue and red dots. There are 4 blue dots and 1 red dot, so I start with a score of 3. If there had been 4 red dots and 1 blue dot, same thing. You subtract one of the 2 colors from the other color. So that's your starting score. Then each green dot is +1 and each yellow dot is -1. So here I start with 4 minus 1 is 3. And then I have 2 more negative ones. So if I put mine here, I would get a score of 1. So let's see if we can find a better score than that. What if we put it like this? Now I have 6 blue dots, 3 red dots, so 6 minus 3 is 3, minus 4 for yellow, so I'm at -1. That's pretty awful. Can we do one where we get the green dot involved? Well, here's a pretty good one. Reds minus blue is 3 minus 0 is 3, plus 2 is 5. There's a score of 5. You can see, though, if I had put it back here, it would have given me a very different score. 6 minus 1 is 5, plus 2 greens, minus 2 greens is 5. Okay, that wasn't a very different score. It's the exact same score. So again, this is a pretty interesting game. Once you give out the points to everybody for wherever they put their pieces, and then you get rid of the card, and you put the next card in. The first player to get 10 points is the winner. Now, my first thought when I went through this game and played it, and I played it several times actually, it's a very fun little game in the sense, is replayability, because there's only so many cards. And in fact, I wondered why they didn't make all the cards double-sided. You would have seen the top side of each card on the stack, but who cares? You just flip it over, and that would have allowed them to have 100 different cards instead of the 55 or so that are in the game. Now, I don't think I'll ever memorize any card, look at the card and go, oh, that's the one I know that I need to put it on the diagonal 3rd line here. But it does limit it, I guess, a bit. But taking that out of the equation, it's really interesting as the game progresses. When I first look at a board, I say, okay, no yellows. I want as many greens and no yellows. But at the same time, I want as many reds or blues and not the other. And so you're looking at the lines, and it can be tricky. Sometimes taking just a few of the dots is much more point worthy than taking a whole pile and after you subtract and add everything, you're basically down to 0. Now, this isn't a very mathy game. You have to subtract the reds from the blues, add the greens, and subtract the yellows. And that, you're like, oh, all that adding and subtracting. It's really not a problem here, okay? It's a quick thing to do, and most of the time you're going to get between 1 to 5 points. I don't know that I've seen too many over 5 points, although it certainly is possible. The game, I mean, it says to play 10 points. I can play to 15, 20, 25, whatever. But it's kind of a way to pass the time. This is the kind of game I say, hey, while we're waiting to do something, let me pull out Reflection for us. And so we pull it out, and we can play 2 or 3 cards. We don't even play necessarily to win, just to see who can get the most points on each card. And that person, wins that card or whatever. So it's cool. It's unique. Basically, my recommendation for you to, if you should get this or not, is if the whole concept itself sounds interesting to you. To me, it does. To me, it's that thing like, oh wow, I get to put that mirror there. And you saw in the video that when you put the mirror there, it does a pretty good job at reflecting everything and looking at that board in a unique way. So, Reflection.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!
There.